everyone, to the R.E.S.T podcast, where our goal is to help each and every one of you displace confusion, chaos, and dis-ease in order to heal and find significance in life. I am here with the author of the Reconstitution Method for Healing and Rest, Virginia Dixon.
Last segment, Liliana, you made some points and drew analogies around bodies of water. And I was reminded of the fact that you and I both raised our kids in San Clemente, lived there for 35 years. It's an amazing little beach town and we love it there. It's home. We'll be home forever. But I remember that all the moms, most of the parents that raised their kids in San Clemente, the high school, for God's sake, had a beautiful ocean view, right? We knew our kids were running to the water every chance they got. So what did we do? We put them into junior lifeguard. And why? We needed them to understand riptides. Really, we didn't want them to drown. And there was no keeping them out of the water.
Right, yeah.
And what do we do with riptides? What's the first thing they teach them?
To just relax.
Relax and go with it.
Yeah, exactly.
You go with it until
don't struggle.
You intuitively will know.
So the eddy takes you out.
That's right. You'll find a way out if you go with it. I want you to talk about that in the context of things we've both had to do in our lives. So I think we touched on them in the last two segments. Go with it until you have an out, right? Talk about that in terms of the metabolic systems that you're really an expert on.
Yeah. Well, it was really interesting. I was talking to a patient the other day and we were just talking, like they were saying, God, I wish I could, like, when I have an emotion and it doesn't feel good, like you told me to name it. And then this is how I kind of look at it. I said, think of you're like a fireman, right? Fireman's always on calls, for the next crisis or what have you. And so when they get this call, what do? They slide down the pole. They're going to go meet the situation, right? So I said, same thing. When you have an emotion, you want to name it. And if it's a reaction, like Virginia, you started out with the emotions of anger and sadness. And
well, I want to distinct something. I want to draw a distinction here because you're saying something really important. I help people identify feelings, which are a function of the soul. And then the emotions are different. They're the limbic system, the external. So they got to identify the feeling behind the emotion. For example, we see people get angry all the time. But the feeling behind anger is usually pain, shame, guilt, regret. But it's not anger. If we react to the anger, we're going to miss the person's heart. So we want people to begin to identify their feelings so they can understand their emotions.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. And then kind of going back to the surrender and the water and the fluidity, right? And so I say, okay, well, first name the feeling, okay, but it has to be an emotion. Get to it. If it's a reaction, like I'm feeling abandoned, that's a perception. All right. But underneath it all is I'm feeling unlovable. I'm feeling sad. What does it make you feel? And if you slide down the pole, you'll usually find when you hit the ground, you're moving towards a limiting belief about yourself. Okay. Yeah. And so when you get to that limiting belief, you say to yourself, okay, this is a yes or no question. It can't be yes, but, or no, but. It has to be yes or no. Like, let's just say self-worth, which is basically a universal, belief system. Okay. I'm not enough. So then you just say, okay, well, let me have which means I would have to be not enough in every aspect of my life. I'm not enough of a good mother, of a good sister, of a good daughter, of a good wife, of a good friend, of a good, right? And then you say, well, no, I am, right? So then you say, well, that is not true. Okay. And then how do you reconcile that feeling that you have? Okay. So then you might say to yourself, all right, how can I accept this and really accept it and let it go? And actually, rather than, pretending like I understand this or I solution oriented it some way, is to trust that whatever that first thought that comes to your mind, trust it. And you'll watch how it will reveal itself weeks later that you made the right decision. Like, I had an example where, a friend of mine, I invited her to something and she couldn't afford to go. So I said, maybe get a hold of this person. Maybe you could, go for free. So she got to come for free. And I was so happy because she's got 4-stage breast cancer. And I was really happy that she could go to this thing. So, I was really excited. The person was coming from Europe and so forth. So we went together. And then the next day that teacher was having an event for 2 more days, right? Well, she got invited to come and I didn't, right? Now, so for me, she didn't tell me. She was just gone, MIA the whole day. And I was like, but I did get a little thing saying, oh, I met with these people and we had lunch together. It was so much fun. We got to bond. And I'm like on the other end of going, well, why didn't I get to go? Right.
Why wasn't I included? Yeah.
Right. So I said, okay, what are you feeling right now? And this is why it's so important to actually break this stuff down. I said, well, I'm feeling angry. And I said, well, no, you're not feeling angry, because feeling angry means you're feeling you're being threatened by something, that you think intentionally that they're doing. Okay, well, what do you feel? Oh, I'm feeling a little jealous that she got to do that and I didn't. Right?
Yeah.
And then underneath that, but then I even went down into feeling not just jealous, but disregarded, in regards to, right?
Not considered.
Invisible. Yeah, exactly.
And then I said, well, that's still a perception. And keep going down, Liliana. And I said, oh, maybe that she impressed upon them more than you did. And so they invited her and not you.
It all adds up to unworthiness.
Right. So I went right to that self-worth. And then at the end of the day, after I said, no, I'm fully worthy of that event, then I said, maybe it wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. And just that thought alone allowed me to let it go, have a beautiful conversation with her, reconcile that whole kind of, what I had going on in my head, because we love each other, and could get over that rather than holding on to it and maybe me holding back my gifts to her.
Yeah.
Right.
We talk about that in the context of lies that derail us.
Absolutely. But 3 or 4 weeks later, I realized why it wasn't for me to have, because there was an entanglement that she got into. And so it was not mine. See, so if you can just trust and have patience, maybe you're not going to get the answer like 2 days later or even that day. But if you just trust, it'll reveal itself to me, and I don't have to have the angst for another week or what have you. So it's really important to break it down.
And understand. Yeah, I love that. And understand the things, and Natalie knows I'm big on this, but the things we want aren't the things we need.
Yeah.
And while you're telling that story, I'm reminded of, well, make sure you tell them this, or make sure they want this, or they want to get this. And I'll never forget, I don't know if it was you or Randy Lee or somebody else. I said, I never concern myself about what people want. I have to be very present and discern and determine what they need by what they tell me they want.
Which could be painful for them to hear sometimes.
Painful, and it can be very difficult, and you have to listen very carefully, and you have to be open to the discernment that comes, and hopefully the wisdom that comes as you surrender these conversations and lift everybody up to prayer. What people want is not in my realm of even thinking. It's giving them what they need.
Right.
And the body, however, will always take what it needs.
Absolutely.
The brain will make sure it doesn't care about that conversation. So tell us how disease states develop from emotions and feelings that emote, that become very confusing, and people pursuing what they want at the expense of what they need. Yes. If I don't get that right, I can't help somebody step into freedom. I know what they want. I want a lot of things that I don't need. You didn't need that drama. Yeah. You didn't need that dynamic. What you needed was what God showed you through your patience. Yeah. God wanted you to understand what you need to understand beyond what you wanted. Yeah. So tell me how that manifests, how emotions manifest in states of disease.
Well,
what does that look like?
Yeah, I'd say statistically, 95% is influenced by lifestyle and environment. 35%, I think that more like 35 is influenced by what you consume, what you eat, right? But so think of that, 95% your environment. So again, we're talking about not only generational patterning in the womb, but the life you continue to adapt to. We're all adaptable creatures, okay? You get into a relationship, maybe it's toxic, but for whatever reasons you feel that it's serving some purpose, you maladapt to not being authentically you. Well, when you're not authentically you,
maladapt
and when
to
you
lies.
suppress your emotions and you become passive aggressive and you're not heard, seen, and felt, well, then you start to create an internal storm. And and those emotions are going to affect a certain organ system. So again, let's
go through organs and systems.
Okay.
Let's be really specific.
All right. So you were talking about the pineal gland in regards to Jordan and the tumor,
in the womb.
Right.
Yeah.
So the pineal gland is all about insight. It's all about intuition. It's the production of melatonin. It's all about the cycle of life, right? So oftentimes when we are overly in the future, right, we're in the intuitive, trying to be too knowing, then that can overstimulate the pineal gland, right? So when we don't use our intuition and we're very much a very intellectual thinker, then that also can create a deficiency in the pineal gland as well. Okay.
And we're hurrying. We know this is important. These are pressing ideas and things. Yeah. And it's completely
right. And also now think about, the pineal gland here is what we would consider the third eye, the opening, the awakening, right? And so again, it also is a spiritual center as well. So the pituitary, right, is going to lean more toward the master endocrine organ, and it's going to be the one that gives direction to everything. So that's the spiritual center, right? So again, when we are not spiritually rooted, then we feel very unstable in our lives. And so when you have an illness, for example, it can shake that stability for you because all of a sudden you feel like the rug got pulled out from underneath you. So that's a different organ system. That is what we would consider the constitutional organ system of the colon, the base, the lower part of the spine. So again, if you've lived a life where there's been a lack of stability in your life, uncertainty, traumatic issues where, your food and water, just basic needs were not met, then you don't feel safe in life.
And so you immigrating.
Yeah. So you could create an overactive nervous system with high adrenal and high cortisol, and that creates inflammation, and all inflammation is a starting process for all disease.
Okay. I see that.
From top to bottom, whether it's the spiritual center or right? But remember, you've got top to bottom.
That's right.
It makes a very strong connection when you're in alignment. And so again, as you just kind of look at all the organ systems, as far as the throat is the thyroid, this is all about the right to speak my truth, the right to know my truth, the right to be heard, the right to get back what I want to hear. So when people suppress their needs, right? Because you can get an adverse reaction as a child. I say something and someone says, that's stupid. Oh, that didn't feel very good. Or I say something and they say, well, why do you think you deserve that? So again, we start to guard ourselves in regards of our ability to be able to feel safe in our ability to speak our truth.
Right. And I want to say something because it's a trigger word for me. And I know what you mean by what you're saying. Yeah. But there are opinions. We all have opinions. And then there's truth, capital T, truth.
Yeah.
So you can have an opinion. That doesn't make it true.
Yep.
But everyone has the right to speak their opinion.
Correct.
So I wanted to interject. When Liliana is saying my truth, I want everybody to understand that what she's saying is, as an individual, you have the right to give your opinion, and you must, and we all need to be tolerant of everybody's opinions because they breathe, they live, they have a soul in a body, and we need to recognize that. And I don't want to confuse it with the contemporary terms of my truth.
Yes.
Correct.
Your
yes.
truth.
No, absolutely.
No,
Thank
there
you
is
for that
truth in it. Yeah, because I know what you mean. I just want to clarify that.
And so again, in an observation, right, when we have had accurate acknowledgement as a child, I can sit in my truth while you're uncomfortable with mine.
Mm-hmm. Sit in your opinions and communicate your opinions.
Truth, even though you're uncomfortable, I'd like you to believe what I'm saying, but if you don't, that's okay. I don't judge you. Please don't judge me.
That's where the tolerance that you mentioned comes in.
Yeah,
absolutely. You got to have it.
Because when we're not tolerant of each other's opinions and each other's perceptions and each other's evaluation of things. And by the way, there can be strong debate around things, but when we're not tolerant, we really diminish ourselves.
And our ability to reason. We're not able to reason if we're not tolerant and able to hold these two ideas together.
Yeah. And that's one of the tragic things that has happened in education.
Yeah.
And that's why this country's in the mess it's in. Liliana, I bring this up all the time, but people are becoming so sick and mental illness is becoming the problem that it is. I think it is the single most important crisis facing the United States, facing not just our nation, the world. And the reason is because we're not respecting these laws of nature, these things that are self-evident, and appeal to our natural affections. We all need to be heard. We all have an opinion. We need to create education systems. We need to create paradigms. We need to create healing information. We need to create medical information that establishes a platform where when somebody speaks, you shut up and listen. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, in my opinion, the foremost authority on trauma. He's my professor, studied trauma with him for 1 year. I'll tell you, he's gone rogue. And he said in one of the lectures that he gave around trauma, if you are a practitioner, if you're in the mental health industry, if you're in the field of healing, and for that matter, any industry that serves people, the systems that we are working in are sicker than the people we're working for, that we're serving. Right. Yeah. And it's time to go rogue. Please stop everything and be present. Listen to what people are telling you. And at R.E.S.T, we do that ad nauseum. And our aim is to bring people into alignment with very basic things. If the disruption in the case or in the state of a person is right here, up around this area, anywhere around the brain, even right here, and I want you to break the systems down. In the brain, this has to do with a very specific emotional constitution, whether it's sins of commission, omission, or things that are passed on generationally. There is a reason why there's disruption in the hard wiring between the spirit, the soul, and the body there. Let's peel everything back, and we can teach people how to do that in such a way that they can facilitate healing for themselves and each other.
We have so many people that want to gift healing to their friends and family members. Due to popular request, we've officially created the Gift of R.E.S.T package for purchase. Please go to theplaceofrest.com/wholeness packages to view the Gift of R.E.S.T. If you've been listening to our podcast regularly and are now wondering, what's next, or how can I get more support? Our Day of R.E.S.T course is available to support you in your pilgrimage. Use the promo code PODCAST, all lowercase, to receive a 10% discount for our introductory Day of R.E.S.T course. Now back to the show.
Thoracic area. There is congestion, broken here. Something's breaking down. Your skeleton is all bones and it's held together by soft tissue. And there's energy and water and frequencies and vibration that make everything work. So what could possibly be happening in your mind, your heart, your will, your conscience, your relationships, your sphere of influence? What's happened in that of your ancestors or whatever that could be causing some of this? The center cavity, the chest. And I want you to address this in terms of chakra. No, chakras are not some bizarre Middle Eastern witchcraft stuff. It's real. It is real.
They're just energy centers. They're portals of the body.
Energy centers. And we see them, we measure them. Liliana, you and I can tell what somebody needs to take and not take. Yeah. We can literally help people confirm something's wrong with my liver. Well, let's see. We can do an energy test and confirm that, in fact, something's wrong with their liver. Yeah. Absolutely. Interesting play on words. Litter. Yeah, a lot of litter goes through the liver.
That's right. Well, so again, a lot of it shows up vibrationally first before it actually shows the condition. Like what you said, you had an intuitive thought that, there was something wrong with my child brain. Right there. And I can't go, I should go get an MRI. Well, I can't. Well, what's this crazy mother? She's not the doctor here, but you had a sense. And this is why that's all it is energy, right?
Yeah. And her body was made in my body. And look at the crazy shiz I was dealing with and trying to put together. And I love this country and I see the hemorrhaging heart of a nation. I see what we have to do and everything my dad taught me and all this and education. And I got to know more and dig more and get the neuro thing. And you start putting all this together.
You're making me anxious just listening
to
know.
That. Imagine what it's like to live in my head.
Or be a child listening to all that in her,
Exactly. And you know what? And I think my kids, it's amazing my kids survived me. I say all the time, it's God, thank you. It's amazing they've survived me. Now I want to sit back and see what they do with the mess I made of a lot of things and also the good things that I poured into them.
Absolutely.
So it's not, so I want to encourage people, it's all messy. Life's messy. But it's beautiful. There's something beautiful that emerges out of the messes. And I think that's what we dig up in R.E.S.T.
And your kids are beautiful. Your family is beautiful.
Yeah, they are. They are. They're amazing. Wonderful. And I see and I continue to see, wow, that came from me.
Yeah.
Wow, I was behind that. And in as much as I'm able, and they're busy and they're all doing great things and doing their own thing, but to say, hey, I've been thinking, and now a lot of the conversations I want to have with them, right, as time permits, we have a big family, so we're all together all the time, but as time permits, I really seek those opportunities to say, gosh, I've learned this and I've realized that, and be careful. Receive the grace, right? Because that came from me. Yeah. And I didn't know it. I didn't see it. And I didn't understand it till I do now. Yeah. But you go run and be free. This is not your story. Yeah. It's my story that clung on to you.
Right. And it's so easy for us to project our story onto those that we love. It's so easy. They're not you. And I think that's probably one of the biggest faults of a parent, is that, well, I would have behaved that way, or I would have done this, or why can't they do that? Right. But they're not.
Well, didn't we think we were supposed to teach them everything we knew so they could go do it?
Absolutely. Go be a little better me. Okay.
Well, I realized that Dad, and it was from a place of fear. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. But I started crying the other day just thinking, Liliana, my dad left an inheritance, left influence, left position. He walked away from everything, but with a shirt on his back and everything he had in his heart and the knowledge he had, on a grant to come here to the United States because he saw what was happening.
Yeah, the chaos.
As an influence. Yeah, the chaos was spreading through the world. Yeah. Cuba, First World War, Second World War. And of course, we saw what was emerging in Cuba. And then we see the centralization in the beginning of one world government things that were starting to happen in the early 1950s. Nobody understood that. He didn't know. He had an intuition in a sense and thought, I got to get my family out of here. There's too much enthusiasm for worldviews that have been tested. They don't work. Socialism. And Liliana, I remember seeing my dad get in fist fights with my uncles over these things. And by the way, as you know, I'm writing a book, and the context for R.E.S.T is these deeper narratives woven into all of our stories. And hopefully I'm going to be able to guide people through, hey, wait a second, before you despair in your cancer and your autoimmune diseases or all the crappy things you did as a parent, hold your horses here for a second. Here's, I want to inspire you with my story. I want to instruct you with our story as human beings. And I want to equip you and with your story and get that narrative in this book so that it can be an instrument of healing for people. Because I make perfect sense. And what happened with my daughters and how I parented and everything makes perfect sense in the context of my own story.
Right. Yeah.
And the traumas and how they lodge into our bodies and they go on generationally.
Right. Oh, yeah. And I want to get back to the truth in regards to that we were talking about the thyroid, right?
Yeah. Can you start over with the head real quick? Just give us a quick view.
Okay. So kind of think of the pituitary gland as a master endocrine organ. So it kind of gives direction to everything. So it's like God force, okay, life. And so oftentimes when I'm talking about the truth, I'm even talking about the divine truth to be revealed to us. I ask God that all the time, especially when I'm in a quandary of something. When I was going through, my last breakup, I was just like, God, reveal the truth to me. And sometimes it comes in harsh ways, but you just have to just trust and move in the direction. So that's the pituitary gland. The pineal is about, the future, the what ifs,
foresight,
and also the need to control as well. Okay. Yeah. And then you've got the thyroid, which is all about the ability to feel safe, to speak your truth, knowing that your truth is going to change according to what you're exposed to. Okay. Just like, look how much you and I have grown since we've known each other. And so different, what we've been exposed to, the education, the teachers, things of that nature, our truth begins to evolve, right? So there's not one little soapbox to stand on in life, but we were talking about observing. And if we can really come from an observational point of view, I'm observing this behavior is because I didn't sleep well last night. It's not because I'm lazy. Then there's no evaluation. And if there's no evaluation, there's no judgment. So if we can all come from an observation point of view when it comes to look at what is bothering us in any way, shape, or form, then it's going to be so much easier. When you're looking at the heart area, all issues concerning the heart, dreams that are not fulfilled, sadness, big T traumas, expectations that were never met, and
pain, sadness, grief, abandonment, all these kind of things.
And also too is secrets, right? And shame that can happen, especially in a child abuse situation,
or betrayal. betrayal, abuse, abandonment. Yeah.
You know, when you get upset and you get angry, you know, you get your blood pressure goes up, your lungs constrict, all of these things. So, the lung about sadness, the heart about grief and sorrow and loss, right? And then you go down even further.
And the lungs also fear of death.
Yeah. Fear of death, right? And I always tell my patients, you know, we all know we're going to die, right? So we all agree with that. But
it's not new.
No, but what we're afraid of is how and what it's going to feel like.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have a story about that, but as we can continue down the body here.
For our last segment, I want you to start with that story.
Okay, I'll start with that story. So then just remember, you've got the vagal nerve that goes from the brain all the way down to the stomach. So all of that's happening in the GI system, that's why they call it the second brain, is influencing the entire body, right? The gut feelings, that's why they call them that. So then if you go down to the solar plex area, this is all about who am I? You asked me a while back, you know, what do you think causes disease? And the lack of authenticity, the lack of the ability to stand strong in your convictions and to recognize that, you know, you're living life out of your perception, but out of your ancestry as well. So if I want to know who I am, let me look back at my history of my life and also my ancestors, right? And so the third is chakra is all about, you know, who am I? How do I see myself? How does the world see me? So this is where self-esteem exists. So I tell my patients, you cannot buy a self-esteem. You can go ahead and have the beautiful Ferrari car. You can have the, you know, gorgeous, you know, Missoni outfit on, whatever. But you can feel really good. And from the outside, you look, wow, must have made it. She must be this and that. But inside, you're still trying to prove, am I enough? Am I enough? And there's not anything that from the outside world that can make you feel enough. That's acquired in the house. I see you. I feel you. I hear you, right?
I see you, I
hear you, and I feel you. Even though I don't ask for your aid, you come to me because, like as a mother, you intuitively can read your child, right? And then you go down even, so this whole fourth chakra, I wanted to go back to that, you know, because we were talking about, you know, the effect of this is also breast cancer, right? Unrest in the nest.
It's right in the center cavity of the chest.
Yeah. And also too, it's like the inability to be able to help a child, right? To feel at loss with that. So many times with breast cancer, I see this a lot, you know, mother-daughter wounds, issue of trauma in the home, shame, guilt, sorrow, secrets, things that are, you know, more of the big T traumas, right? Like sexual abuse. And it's such a frequency, right? It's just amazing to me that how, you know, I can see case after case and kind of have an understanding of the roots of these things, right?
And what we see a lot of too, Liliana, and I just want to mention this also, if you're right-handed, right? It's the left breast generally that's associated with those traumas you mentioned. But if you're right-handed and it's your right breast, it's with a man in your life.
Right.
Betrayal, abandonment, abuse. Yeah. So those two breasts have significant consequences in manifesting what's going on in your private life. It's gotten to, I want to address this too, and you and I would say this all the time, I've just gotten to the point where I'd rather somebody tell me absolutely nothing. That's why I like when they fill out their paperwork. And I toy around with this back and forth, but if I can see scans, brain patterns, EEGs, you know, labs, and we know the disease that they're struggling with, what a doctor diagnosed them with. We pretty much know what's going on in their life and in their home.
Absolutely.
Or what they're secretly, or whatever secrets are buried alive, or whatever mysteries they might not even know of. But we can go right to the heart of the emotional constitution that's causing the disease. Yep. So that's amazing.
It's huge. I mean, because many physicians overlook this. They don't ask you how your relationship is with your husband or your children or things of that nature, because they've got 15 minutes to get you in and out. Yeah. You know, so this topic usually never surfaces up.
And they're not trained.
No, they're not
trained. And I think that's why we're wanting this information to get out so that people can have a basis and feel a measure of freedom and saying, wait, I don't have to be afraid of all this stuff.
Right. No, absolutely.
Right.
So as we continue down, you know, we think of the chakra or the solar plex chakra, it's also involved with the pancreas. So again, if I don't feel good about myself, I want to go eat carbohydrates. So it can unregulate your blood sugar. So a lot of times, when we see that, I'm always looking at how when people are overweight, they don't feel good about themselves, right? When they're have fatigue or they've got, other issues that they don't feel like they're fully vibrant, they don't feel good about themselves. There's a depressive state. So you gotta look at it from a whole human being in terms of perspective.
And we got to put this into context because, I grew up, my whole family is of European descent. I grew up in Montevideo, but I lived for my grandfather walking in the door 3 times a day with fresh baked bread from the bakery.
Oh yeah, well,
and all the pastries.
Who would live for that? Okay, that's a perfect dopamine hit.
That is
like, oh yeah,
I know. And every afternoon, there was that pink box that came with tissue paper and pastries and croissants and everything for tea.
Oh my goodness!
And so there's that part of community that's so wonderful and lovely too. Yeah. So I don't want everybody to go into extremes with all this stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Know that there's conditional things. And wine, we didn't have a meal that they didn't serve wine to everybody. I grew up with wine at the table since I'm a little tyke. They put wine in my water. But so there's cultural things, so we got to put context, right?
Absolutely.
And you with your shots of tequila.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. But so again, what we kind of want to look at is where is the disease located?
Yeah.
What's going on in your life? What has been your history? What has been your family's history? So we can really start to get to the roots of it all. When people have GI issues, right? It's the future. We talked about the pineal being the future, but this is about worrying about the future, not just my future, but my children's futures and my friends. So
stomach cancer.
This could be just any GI issues. This could be any from, irritable bowel syndrome to Crohn's disease to, like cancer, colon, because the whole what we would consider the second chakra, it's all watery organs, including your reproductive cycle. And so again, we'd say, okay, oftentimes with abuse too, we see a lot of this. If GI issues, you can see children in a home that has a lot of stress and unrest in their nest, is that they have a lot of gut
stomach
issues,
problems,
allergies, eczema, psoriasis. Those are all autoimmune issues that are being caused by the stress of the home and the environment.
And college students. And I'm realizing
God, there's so much anxiety
between,
right now.
Yeah, between the ages.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Because I'm in debt. I have all this money that I owe, and yet I don't see job opportunities. How am I going to live? How am I going to support myself?
And you just feel generally unprepared. It doesn't matter how much of school you go to. You walk out and you're like, okay, I have this piece of paper. Now what?
Kind of
I don't know how to do my taxes. I don't know how to start my own business. I don't know how to.
Yeah. And going back to, what was the disease you just mentioned? Irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah.
And colon issues and digestive issues and stomachs.
It's an epidemic.
And it's epidemic, and it does come from worrying about what about my future.
Right. Yeah.
So those of you that are listening to the podcast, and it's a lot of our listening audience is between the ages of 22 to 47, right?
22 to 45. Yeah.
Imagine that. That's our listening audience, which is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
But there you go. So you might want to get with some friends, listen to our courses. And Liliana, we're going to make your whole program, eating program available. So we're going to give you some great resources, and we have them online now for you to say, hey, wait a minute, let's start listening to this stuff in community. Let's have these conversations and let's deal with this fear. Is it really rational? No. The greater the darkness, the more the opportunity for light.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So reconcile. Look, the fear is legitimate, right? Seriously, you're not crazy. We're all seeing it. And there's an opportunity to do things differently in ways that have never been conceived or thought of. And I want to draw everybody's attention to the first podcast we started recording with Liliana, because it all began with this dream of doing something amazing, of running. And then you're saying, what the heck? Everybody squelched that dream, right? Everybody undermined that dream. But that dream ultimately took her to understanding these deeper things. So don't look to your relatives to fulfill or not. Don't look what they did or didn't do. Don't look to your neighbor about the economy or what's happening. Look to your dreams.
Look to your God-given talents.
Your resources. Yeah. And then look that this is not our darkest hour. It's our finest moment to really thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So good. Yeah. Thanks, Liliana.
You're welcome. It's fun.
And then we'll see you in the next segment.
Okay, perfect.
For updates about R.E.S.T and this podcast, please visit our Instagram or Facebook, The Place of R.E.S.T. If you would like more information about Virginia or to support and join the cause of R.E.S.T, please go to theplaceofrest.com/donate or call 949-289-5935. Thank you for listening to R.E.S.T with Virginia Dixon. We'll see you next week.